Luke, welcome to the show.
Adrian, how are you?
Great to have you on, my man. Great to have you on. And before I get you to share your backstory, Luke, share something about yourself that most people do not know.
Oh God, you've caught me off guard there now. That most people do not know. Um, I suppose when I was I've actually got a good one, non-fitness one related. So you know the Hardy Bucks.
Yeah. Uh, I know this personally, Luke, but I know not many people will know. But please do tell. This is so funny.
Yeah, so like I don't use TikTok, right? I just made an account the other day because somebody on Twitter sent me a video and they were like, "Is this you?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's me." And they were like, "What's going on here?" So basically, when I was 15, 16, I went to see the Hardy Bucks because they put out a thing on Facebook saying we need some participants, like we need people just to be extras and help out. And it was a
No.
Saturday morning. I was doing nothing with my neighbor, so we were like, "Sound, should we go up and help out?" Turns out anyway, they like wanted to record loads of stuff in a ball alley, and they asked me to do a bit. And it turns out anyway, to make a very long story short, I was in their Christmas in Castletown special. It must be well over 10, 11, maybe 12 years ago at this stage. And the whole thing was Luke is in foundation maths. So anywhere I went as a teenager, like going to youth discos and stuff like that, people would be spotting me, going like, "That's Luke is in foundation maths. You're in the Hardy
Oh my
Bucks."
God,
But as I've
man.
gotten older, people don't know that I've actually been in it. So yeah, for the listeners, that's who I am. That's my real claim to fame. I was in the Hardy Bucks.
If you go on, so for anyone listening, go on to YouTube, Google Christmas in Castletown, and you'll actually see the very scene where Luke is in the ball alley. And it's like, is it Buzz McDonald and Eddie Durkin? They're like the two lead characters in that scene.
Yeah, it was Buzz and it was French Toast.
Oh,
Uh,
it's French
yeah. They were trying to teach us they were trying to teach me how to stand in a doorway and look hard. That's how the whole thing started. So if you do watch it, go onto Instagram and type in Lucas in Foundation Maths onto one of my photos, so I know that you've actually watched it.
Yeah, definitely tag him. We'll get you to share your links at the end, Luke. But so Luke, let's kind of dive in. Luke, share a bit about yourself. Share your backstory. What got you into physio in the first place, and tell us, Luke, how you ended up with Arsenal and being a physio at their team.
So yeah, I mean, it'll take me a while to go through it all, but to make a long story short, again, I suppose I got a lot of injuries as a teenager. You know yourself, I used to play a lot against you as well. A bit
So
of Gaelic
Luke and I
football.
would have played a couple of times against each other, and then we became acquaintances when we went to college because we got the same bus up to. I went to Mary I. Luke, you went to UL, but keep going there, Luke. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would have got a lot of injuries as a teenager, and I spent a lot of time with physios. So then I thought, well, actually, this is really interesting because a lot of the physios that I went to weren't very good, and some of them were really good. And I thought, well, if I want to have an impact on people's lives, then I actually could help young fellas to get back into their sports, give them good, high quality care, and then be able to help them in a good way, in an evidence-based way. So then I thought, well, the best way of doing that is do sports science and then do a master's in physio. So then I'd get the benefit of doing like exercise, prescription, strength and conditioning alongside the physio stuff. So yeah, that's when I would have been in UL for 4 years, 2011, 2015. And then I did my master's in physiotherapy over in the University of Brighton from 2016 to 2018. And in that time frame, so in sports science first, I had the luxury of going to New Zealand and working with Chiefs Super Rugby team down there. So again, for any of your listeners that are rugby followers, they probably know them. They're like the best team in the Southern Hemisphere throughout 2012 and 2013. They won like the Super Rugby title. So they were really, really good, had big names like Sonny Bill Williams and the likes playing for them. So it was an unbelievable experience. And I only got that through sports science. And that got me involved with elite sports. And then when I did physio as a student, I was like, I want to go back and work in a bit of sport again if I can. So then I got in with London Irish over in London, obviously, as a placement. So I did 6 weeks with them. And then they kept me on afterwards working for them while I was also working in the NHS. So like in a hospital in London while also working for London Irish. And then from there, one of my best friends in London was working in another hospital in London. And he basically had contacts where people were working for Arsenal and they were looking for more good quality physios. So then I went and told them about my experience working in elite rugby and stuff like that. And they said, brilliant, we'll take you on. So then I ended up working part-time for London Irish Rugby with their academy, part-time with the academy at Arsenal, and then full-time in the NHS. So it gave me a really nice mix of working in elite sport, but also working with the general population as well. It was a really good mix to have. So I was doing that from 2018 until 2021. Yeah.
And tell us, so Luke, was there any kind of marquee names you would have helped out at Arsenal?
You know, because they're all so young. Like it's I was working mostly with lads. Like the academy is anywhere from under 18 to under 8. Like it's
Sure.
unbelievable. You've got 8-year-olds signing a contract to play for Arsenal. So you could be working with any of those age groups.
Gotcha, man.
So I wasn't working with any big names, but in the next couple of years, like say 4 to 5 years, there'd be a fair few lads that I was working with that would probably go on to play for the first team at Arsenal as well.
There we go. Yeah, so you'll be looking out for those for those
Yeah,
players
exactly.
you would have nurtured, Luke. So Luke, let's kind of transition into kind of rehab, prehab work, and just injury prevention, because there's so many different methods out there. You have like foam rolling, you got massage gun, you've got mobility tools, a lot of different methods, static stretching, of course, and then like things like yoga and so on. So Luke, let's kind of break down a couple of these different methods. And if you just kind of share, your thoughts, are they beneficial? Are they impacting your performance, good or bad? So let's start out with the most popular one, Luke, foam rolling.
Everyone loves a bit of foam rolling, don't they? Probably love it a bit too much as well. So yeah, like foam rolling it's a controversial one because like yourself, anyone that's listening, they've been in the gym and you'll see people doing it some people do it 15 minutes, some people are doing it 30 minutes, some people are doing it longer than that for aches and pains or for whatever reason. People will be doing it for recovery. Some people will be doing it to prepare them for performance as well. But actually, when we look at the scientific evidence on foam rolling, there is very little evidence to justify doing it for any length of time beyond 30 seconds. So the evidence for it at the moment is basically it may improve your flexibility in the short term, and it might change your perception of how discomfort feels. So if you ask anyone that's in the gym, they'll probably say, oh, they're foam rolling to increase the range of motion at the hamstrings or their glutes or whatever, increase the flexibility. But actually, it's not having a local effect at the muscles. It's not having a local effect on the joint. It's having a centrally mediated effect. And what that is basically a neurophysiological mechanism, very similar to placebo. So if you're squatting and your aim is to squat as deep as you possibly can, you're trying to get the most out of your squats, and you go into the gym and you do a few bodyweight squats to start off and you're just not feeling it, you feel a bit tight in your hips, then maybe you've got an argument there that you could try foam rolling. So you might roll out whatever part is feeling stiff. You might roll around on your hip flexors, you might roll around on your glutes, but it needs to be very, very short, because the change in flexibility that you get from foam rolling is gone within a minute or two. So if you do it for 30 seconds, you get that quick effect of changing your perception of how it feels. And then what you want to do is you want to load that new range of motion that you've got. So yeah, you don't want to be, if let's say you're doing it for 30 minutes, let's say you're doing head to toe, you'd start with your shoulders, you foam roll, and then you work your way down to your calves. The benefit that you got from your shoulders 30 minutes ago is now gone. So if you're doing an overhead squat, the benefit isn't there anymore for that short increase in range of motion that you got in your shoulders from the foam rolling, because you waited 30 minutes to do the rest of your foam rolling. So the change is very, very quick, and it is very temporary. So you have to access that temporary range of motion through loading that new range that you found. And if you don't do that, then it's nearly a waste of time. And then the flip side of that is, okay, well, if I can get a quick change in range of motion, then happy days, I'll just keep doing it. But it doesn't work like that, because you need to consider your time commitment, and you need to consider the investment of your time in a modality that doesn't have a huge amount of evidence to back it up. So let's say you want to do it in the evening time because you want to wind down, you want to go to bed, and you want to do a bit of foam rolling. That's fine, but you just need to be realistic about why are you doing it. Are you doing it for the benefits of relaxation and getting to sleep? Happy days. If you're doing it to improve your flexibility for the following squat day, it's not going to do anything.
Gotcha. Wow. So Luke, if someone is to perform foam rolling, then you're kind of saying cap it at 30 seconds, and then you need to load up to improve that kind of window of trainability. So suppose, let's say I am doing a big squat session, but I want to roll out my hips. How soon after I roll out my hips will I still get that kind of window of trainability before it just goes away?
So let's say you want to do a squat and like that, you're tight throughout your hips. If you did your bout of foam rolling for 30 seconds, I would then say, get yourself under an unloaded barbell and make sure that it feels okay. If it's not feeling okay, go back and do a small bit more foam rolling again, and then access it with the unloaded barbell and see how it feels. But it's a case that it shouldn't be taking you long. If this is taking you 5, 10, 15 minutes to get warmed up for your squats, it's just not worth your time, because there's more beneficial things you could be doing, like a dynamic warm up, like getting your heart rate up, getting your core body temperature up, than just flopping around on a foam roller trying to increase your range of motion. Because all it is doing at the fundamentals, no matter what marketing says or advertising says, it is just changing your perception of how that area feels temporarily. And if that changes, if that's the benefit that you get from it, then happy days. But I think we just need to be accepting of that change in perception, and that it's not changing the length of the muscle, it's not changing the structure or the anatomy of the joint, any of that type of thing. It just doesn't have the force to do that.
Okay, so if someone were to do some foam rolling, Luke, you'd say kind of cap it off at like 3 to 5 minutes?
Oh, max, yeah, definitely. If I was doing it myself, like if I get tight in my lower back or something like that, sometimes I can if I'm doing deadlifts. So I might just roll around the foam roller, literally as if somebody was doing a deep tissue massage, and I'll only do it for 30 seconds. I'll then get back into my warm-up sets, see how it feels, and then go from there. I generally don't spend a huge amount of time on it unless people have a real strong belief that it's good for them, in terms of like my clients and that.
Yeah. So kind of like the placebo effect, that if you genuinely believe it's going to positively impact you, there may be some kind of impact there, but you're kind of saying it's more so perception than actual, what research really indicates.
Yeah, and like that's a good point as well, because belief does drive perception.
Of course.
If you have that belief that this is really, really useful for me, and you're dedicating a large chunk of your time, then you might get those perceived benefits from it. But those perceived benefits would be got if you did 30 seconds as opposed to 30 minutes. So then you can think, well, okay, I've saved myself 29 and a half minutes there. What else can I do?
What else can I do? So much can be freaking done in that time frame, Luke. Tell us then, Luke. Okay, so you've addressed foam rolling, which is a big rock. Static stretching, and this probably applies more so to like field-based athletes. So just give me your thoughts to static stretching, even before a gym session though. Is it good? Is it bad? If it is, how long should you do it for?
Okay, so with static stretching, again, it's going to be similar to foam rolling in ways, because of where we're at with the evidence at the moment. Is there a need to stretch? I think there is. Yeah, I think there definitely is, but it does depend on what your goals are as well. So let's say we take somebody that's listening to this and they're going to the gym, they're keeping healthy that way. And let's say they want to, I don't know, improve their bench press, and they feel a bit tight in their upper back, or they're tight in the front of their pecs or whatever. Should you stretch? Maybe you should, if you're feeling really, really tight. And again, you want to change your perception of how that feels prior to doing an activity in the gym. If it feels looser, or it feels like you can connect with the exercise better, then yeah, there might be a benefit of doing static stretching. But the effect of the static stretching, again, isn't a local effect at the joint or at the muscle. It's again a neurophysiological effect, because if the whole purpose of stretching is to improve flexibility, to elongate the muscle, to allow you to feel more comfortable in a movement, then to actually do that, you have to spend a huge amount of time. We're talking 30, 45 minutes of stretching that particular muscle to get that particular benefit in the flexibility. So again, it comes back to, do you want to stretch? You can if you want. Do you have all the time to dedicate to it? Probably not the most use of your time, or the best use of your time, I should say, if you want to do loads and loads of stretching to get that change in perception of how it feels. And then we need to look at what the evidence says as well. So does it say that it reduces injury? Absolutely not. So there's no evidence to show that static stretching reduces injury, or you're reducing your risk of injury. It doesn't do any of that. Dynamic stretching, yes. Static stretching, no. So then let's say you're a field sport athlete. Let's say you're playing football, playing rugby. If you actually do static stretching before you go out onto your pitch and it's kickoff, you reduce the strength and the power that you can actually produce on the field, and the same way that you would in the gym. So if you're doing static stretching and then you're going straight into performance, you're actually there's a detriment to your performance there. So what you want to do is static stretching followed by dynamic stretching, followed by the actual performance itself, because of that risk of reducing your performance and reducing your power output because of the static stretching itself.
Yeah, Luke, I absolutely love what that you said there. And I think like with warm-ups, what I like to do is transition from slow to fast. So even if you are doing static stretching, as you were saying, do it at the very start. But then once you actually get warmed up, you got to keep it dynamic. You got to like mimic the movements that you're going to be performing in the gym or on the pitch, whatever it might be. And tell us so, Luke, when it comes to so we spoke about foam roll in about 30 seconds or so. Static stretching, if you are to do it before a session, how long roughly should you hold each stretch for?
I would keep it very similar to the application of foam rolling, 30 to 60 seconds, because again, we need to think back on what's the purpose of this movement. Is it to elongate the muscle, or is it to change how we feel so that we're more comfortable to optimize our performance? If it's to elongate the muscle, we need to be doing 30 to 45 minutes consistently every single day to change the length of the muscle. But if it actually, if we know that that's too much of a time investment for us, and the benefits to doing that aren't very high, like they're minimal benefits, then you just want to do 30 to 60 seconds, or until you feel that change in how it's feeling, until your perception has changed and okay, I can now access that increase in range. It doesn't feel as stiff, it doesn't feel as tight. That might be 30 seconds for some people, that might be 2 minutes for other people. But again, you're keeping that window very, very, very short so that you're doing spending most of your time doing beneficial stuff instead.
Okay, so let's talk about some beneficial stuff. So Luke, can you differentiate them between static stretching and more dynamic mobility? What exactly is the difference between the two, Luke?
Yeah, so I suppose static stretching is holding a static position for long periods of time. So like standard one would be stretching your hamstrings, putting your leg straight out in front of you, bending down and touching your toes. You hold that for a long period of time. You're increasing your tolerance to that movement, and then that can increase the stretch that you get, and you feel the benefits from stretching that actual area for holding it long periods of time. Your dynamic stretching then is more in the name, you're doing unloaded movements. So if you want to get your hip flexors warmed up prior to a Gaelic football match where you're going to be swinging at the ball, you'd be swinging your leg. So it's an unloaded movement. You're just explosively moving your leg through the range that it's going to be required to do in the game with the football. So again, there's no specific right or wrong way to do it. You just don't want to do too much of it, because you have the potential to fatigue your legs to such a degree that then you increase the risk of injury. So you want to be doing it very low amount. Like if you're going to be doing your hip flexors, swinging your leg out, you might do 15 to 20 repetitions, both sides, do that 2 times, and then see how you're getting on in terms of how it feels. But again, there's a dose response. Like the more you do, the worse that's going to be. So you have to find that optimal amount of time to actually get the benefit. And you don't want to be doing too much of these type of things, because there's more stuff that you can be doing. And that's sort of like, your dynamic stretching is useful, but it's again, like if you're going into the gym and you're dynamic stretching for 15, 20 minutes, that's probably too much. You can probably just do a minute, 2 minutes of certain movements that are specific to your gym exercises, and then just crack on with your gym session and start reaping the benefits.
Yeah, man, and I'll tell you, look, I made all of these mistakes when I started out training, Luke, and I think a lot has to actually go into the mindset, because I was nearly off just like the placebo effect is where you think something is benefiting you, and even whether evidence suggests otherwise, if you think it can benefit you, there definitely are some, positives from that. But then there's the nocebo effect. And for me, I almost nocebo myself in saying that, like, okay, if I don't do this stretch and this stretch and this stretch, well, then this may negatively impact my performance. And I found myself, like, before some games, like doing band work at home, doing stretching at home, and it took me up to 20 minutes or so to do it. And, wasted so much time. And now, like, Luke, for me, for my typical warm-up, I love the way you said, okay, sure, if you want to do some of the slow stuff, do it at the start, but then you got to load it up. For instance, my ankle mobility isn't the best. So what I will do is, like, I'll kind of isometrically hold the bottom position of a calf raise, and then I might load up and hold the top position. But then straight away I'm into doing like a goblet squat and getting a barbell on my back, and I'll notice straight away I've got more depth, I've got more range of motion because there's more blood flow in the ankle. So I think that's such an important point there, that if you are doing the static stretching, the mobility work, you got to then add some load to it. You got to add some load so you can actually, develop strength in your newfound range of motion. Great stuff there, Luke.
100%, because what really frustrates me is flexibility isn't a measure of health. Like it's not the be all and end all. If you have flexibility without stability, then you're increasing your risk of injury. So if people are spending all this time doing loads and loads of stretching, that might be fine for you if your sport requires it. If you're a gymnast, if you're somebody that has to do the splits for whatever reason, you need to do loads of stretching. Fair enough. But you're also increasing the risk of injury because you need to be able to protect your end range of motion with stability and strength. So you're doing exactly the right thing. You're working on the flexibility, and then you're actually building strength and control within that new range that you've found. And that is the key thing, because strength training reduces the risk of injury long-term. Stretching doesn't. So if you can access the new range that you've had with load and actually build strength and confidence in those positions, then you're doing yourself a favor long-term.
Brilliant. And Luke, tell us, so like, how long on average should, let's just say we're in the gym now and our main lift for today is max effort deadlifts. From the time someone walks into the gym, starts their warm up, how quickly should they be touching the bar and actually getting their first set of reps in? I know it's going to be depending on the individual. We'll say, how quickly from you start your warm up to your first warm up set in the deadlift, roughly what period of time should we be talking?
It's a good question, because it's very hard to answer that. Like, if you say you have no injuries, you've got no back trouble, you've got no hamstring problems whatsoever, you can go straight into that. Like you can literally, you don't need to do any stretching, provided you're fine. You don't need to do any stretching. You don't need to do any big warm-ups on the bike for 15, 20 minutes. Get in there and start performing the positions that you need to perform if you're going to be doing a max deadlift. So that's going to be getting body weight into that position. So maybe not even picking up the bar, picking up a dowel or something like that, and making sure unloaded, you're sitting into that position, feels nice and comfortable, fine. Then we'll use the barbell, 20 kg. How does that feel? If that's fine, putting on your warm-up sets of 10 to 20 kg, and all you're doing is trying to lift the unloaded bar or the lightly loaded bar as explosively as you possibly can to prepare yourself for the movement that you want to be doing. So when you wouldn't do that is if you're feeling a lot of discomfort, or if you're feeling tight in your lower back, or you're feeling tight in your hamstrings, then you would work on maybe doing a small bit of foam rolling. Maybe you just get yourself warmed up on the bike or something like that, just to get your blood flowing and get your core body temperature up, because we have no evidence to say that if you're feeling really good, then you should still do loads of stretching. It's just a complete waste of your time. But if you aren't feeling very good, then do the things that make you feel slightly better so that you can get the most out of your performance. But again, time versus reward. Is it going to take you a long time? It shouldn't. If you can do it in 30 seconds, 60 seconds, change your perception and crack on with your barbell movements or your deadlifts, whatever you're going to do, and that's optimal. So for some people, you just don't need to do a warm-up that length of time at all. For some people, you can go straight into your deadlifts. And for other people, they're going to need to maybe take 5 to 10 minutes to get themselves prepared for their activity.
Yeah, I'm probably in that category. Like, I wouldn't just go straight into the gym and start squatting or deadlifting. I probably need about 5 to 8 minutes, but I'll address the hip flexors, I'll address my thoracic spine. I'll do like some maybe kettlebell swings, more dynamic work, get the blood flowing, and then just get under the bar. And I think blood flow is huge there. Like, just getting more blood flow in the hamstrings and the glutes, it does make a huge difference. And Luke, obviously you spoke about, a very, very common and the most common injury that most people, unfortunately, at some stage in their lives have encountered, which is low back pain. So tell us, Luke, like, what are some of the common misconceptions people have when it comes to actually low back pain?
This is a podcast in itself, isn't it? We could be here for hours talking about this. So yeah, low back pain is absolutely fascinating, for probably all the wrong reasons, I suppose. So misconception number one with back pain is that bending is bad for it, or another one would be posture is the cause of it. Bad posture is the cause of it, and another one would be weak core muscles is the cause of the back pain. They're probably the 3 ones that I come across the most. I'm just basing that off the patients that I would see and the clients that I would see that would say, I've got I'm definitely very weak core strength, and now I've got bad back. Or if I've been lifting something off the ground, I did it wrong, and that's caused my back pain. So they're common things that people will say to you, but actually, the evidence and the reality of the situation is low back pain is multifactorial. There are so many things that contribute to back pain, outside of just posture or just lifting bad, whatever bad actually is. So the evidence at the moment would say that there's more of a link between your socioeconomic background than your posture to your pain. And there's more of a link between your beliefs about what's causing your back pain than your posture or your weak core. So we can have people that have a really, really weak core with zero back pain, and we can have people with the most robust core in the world that have tons of back pain. So it doesn't quite add up. And marketing and advertising has contributed to this in a huge way, because therapists like physiotherapists or chiropractors or osteopaths have made years and years of their livelihood off of telling people that your hips are out of alignment, your back is curved, and you need to come back and see me multiple times a year, multiple times over a number of years. And that accumulates to a huge financial debt without any change in symptoms. So more and more people across the world are struggling with back pain at the moment, despite people claiming they have more and more solutions for it.
Magic
So
remedy.
say again?
The magic remedy.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's looking for a quick fix, and everyone is claiming to have that quick fix, but nobody has that quick fix because it's multifactorial, as I was saying. So the things that contribute to back pain then are, well, if you're listening, let's say you're listening to this right now and you're someone that's struggled with back pain for a long time. Think of the overall health of the lifestyle while also thinking about some of your beliefs. So how is your sleep? Are you getting good quality sleep with good quantity sleep? How is your stress levels at the moment? Are you stressed or are you relaxed? Do you see a change in your pain when you're more stressed or when you're relaxed? How is your financial situation? How is your job? How are your relationships? All these things contribute to back pain an awful lot. In the same way that, like, people talk about, you go walk down the road and you ask somebody what causes headaches, they will probably say maybe dehydration, maybe a poor night's sleep, maybe stress. All these things give me a headache. But then you ask somebody about back pain, they'll say, oh, it's my probably my weak core, probably bending over, lifting something wrong. Back pain is a headache in the back. There is no structural pathology or structural damage in the back, yet you can still feel a huge amount of pain there. That's very real, in the same way that you can when you get a headache. So it's a really tricky situation, because people will have very strong beliefs about what's causing their back pain, which drive the back pain. And actually, we need to as a physio, what I try and do is reframe these things and show that we can actually reframe how you're thinking about your pain, and then also try and actually do the things that you were fearful of doing in a graded exposure way to get you back towards your goals. That's the sort of approach that I like to take with back pain anyway.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you follow the guys at Barbell Medicine, Luke. Do you know?
I certainly do. I love them. Absolutely love them, yeah.
Man, I absolutely. So this actually only happened to me recently, Luke, and first time it happened in a very long time. I was doing a deadlift, and the lifting phase was absolutely fine. It was actually the lowering, and I just felt something in my low back. Man, I was peed off. Like I was annoyed at myself. So that was on a Tuesday, when I usually do a deadlift. The following Wednesday, I woke up, Luke, and obviously when you're lying in bed, you're not moving for whatever 8 hours. It felt really stiff. And if you told me that 12 hours later, less than 12 hours later, you'd be deadlifting 120 kilos again, I would have laughed at you. But I got myself to the gym. The worst thing I could have done is not do anything at all. Got myself to the gym. Okay, did a small bit of hip mobility work, because I know that changed my perception of pain, which you spoke about. But then I just started out in the barbell. All right, 60 kilos. Let's get 10 or 12 reps done. Then I upped it to 100. And then I upped it to 120. And I'll tell you, the following Friday, 3 days later, I was back lifting to 90% of my max. But I know, Luke, that if I didn't do anything at all, if I just stayed at home and maybe did a bit of static stretching or, rolling out in the glutes and then not add load, I wouldn't have been able to deadlift that week, the following week, probably this week either. So just talk to us about that then, Luke. So someone who is encountering low back pain, and their whole kind of prehab process is, I just need to rest it. What are maybe some of the downfalls or just some of the misconceptions around just resting until everything is all good again?
Yeah. So let's say, just to go back on what you said there, like you're 100% nail on the head. If let's say you're well, we're 2022 now. If this was 50 years ago and you were deadlifting and you hurt your back, you probably would have laid on your back for until the pain was gone, because bed rest was the only advice for people with back pain. And the whole thought process was, well, you've caused some sort of mechanical damage there, then we need to let that settle down. It's your back. You don't want to hurt your back. We have all these beliefs around our back being very vulnerable. But actually, it's not. The back is so robust. The whole spine and vertebrae are designed to protect your spinal cord. They're designed to move in different directions. And the less you move, the worse it gets, particularly when you have pain. So if you hurt your back and then you laid on your back for a couple of days, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that you would have had more pain and it wouldn't have improved to the extent that it did. But the fact that you actually got back on the horse again and you started to slowly increase the weight, you did a small bit of the stuff that works for you, then you had a fantastic outcome. So if somebody listens to this and they think that they need to rest for their back pain, it's probably inaccurate to say that you have to rest for your back pain. Now, is there periods of time where you want to pull back from your training and take a bit of a breather? 100%, yeah. But the danger is in the dose with how long you rest for. Movement, back needs movement, and the stiffer the back is and the less you move, the worse the pain is going to get. So if you've got back pain, you need to start off by doing gentle movements. Maybe you find an entry point, like something like yoga or Pilates or just going for a walk, because these type of things can actually de-threaten your nervous system so that you can actually start moving again and show yourself and your spine that it's safe to move. And then once you've got an entry point there where you've challenged the belief that I need to rest, and you found that place where I actually don't need to rest, I can do a bit of movement here and it's not reacting too much, then you build on that and you build towards what you want to do. Now that can be extremely difficult and people can spend their entire life trying to do that. So it's very hard to do by yourself. And that's why if you're struggling with this, chat to somebody that's in the know. Don't chat to somebody that's going to bring you in and massage you and do dry needling and acupuncture on you forever. They have to be helping you to help yourself. And that means getting you back in the driver's seat again so that you're in control of your pain and getting you moving again towards your goals. That's the key thing, because the less you do, the worse it's going to get in the long run. And passive modalities like massage or Theraguns, massage, dry needling, acupuncture, and cupping, all these things have sort of contributed to the problem as opposed to fixing the problem.
Wow. I mean, that's worth the admission to the podcast alone, Luke. I think that's such a fantastic point. And I think a lot of it too is it's perception in the mind, Luke. Because I look, I'm not going to lie now, there was a small bit of fear there starting out initially after returning from injury. So there's no rule that says, look, okay, you're able to squat 100 kilos. You don't just throw on 100 in the bar again and see if you're able to do it. But you just got to build up that confidence if you are encountering some element of fear, that maybe you just start out with the barbell, as you said. Then you might test, 10 kilos each side. Then we step it up to 60 kilos. We might cap it at 80 kilos for the first session. And slowly, as you kind of build confidence in the mind, because I think so much this is in your mind, that if you can just increase that confidence again and feel more confident under the bar or going back playing sport, you'll actually prove to yourself that you're capable of doing much, much more than your limiting beliefs allow you to think.
100%. What you just described there is a technique that they use in cognitive behavioral therapy. So cognitive behavioral therapy, for anyone that doesn't know, is cognitive are your cognitions, your thoughts, and your behaviors, and how there's an interaction between the two. And in terms of treating pain now as physios, we're using a lot of techniques from cognitive behavioral therapy. So what you just described is a flooding technique. So what you did was you got back in there pretty quickly, and you challenged your fear and you faced the fear, and you got a brilliant outcome from it, because you proved to your nervous system that actually this is safe to move, this is feeling pretty good. The opposite of that then is, or not the opposite of that, but the opposite end of the spectrum is graded exposure. And graded exposure in what I would do with patients is somebody's got back pain for 10, 15 years, and they're very, very fearful of movement because they're fearful of the pain. They've almost developed a phobia of the pain. They don't want to deal with it, and they're just so scared of it crippling them completely, which is a fair enough pain to have when it's so scary. So we use graded exposure then to gradually challenge their nervous system and expose them to the feared movements so that we can get them back in the driver's seat. You use flooding, which is a fairly intense one, and it's one that we would use with people that have the confidence to do it. But then we take a slow and systematic and controlled approach for people that have had long-term persistent pain. And both outcomes are really, really good. And it's a really nice way of helping people as opposed to telling them you need a massage or you need this and that. Actually, it's challenging their nervous system, challenging their perceptions, their beliefs to get them back into doing what they want to do. And the other side of that is people come to me with like MRI scans. So let's say you add an MRI scan into this, you throw it all up in the air completely. Like let's say you were not who you are, but you had the same injury, and then you went and got an MRI scan the next day. 100% that MRI scan would have showed something, and that completely changes your psychology then, because you're thinking the next day, well, I'm not going to deadlift now because I see what this MRI scan said about my back. It said I had some sort of like disc problem, or I had a bit of degeneration in my spine. That's perfectly normal. Anyone over the age of like 25, 30 is going to have changes on their MRI scan. An MRI scan is a picture of your back. It's not a picture of your pain. It can't explain your pain. So we try and always talk to people and de-threaten the results that they've had on their scan if what's on their scan doesn't explain their symptoms. And an awful lot of the time it doesn't. People develop a link between or an explanation of their pain from the MRI scan, but actually the MRI scan isn't what's causing their pain at all.
Your words have power. Your words really do have power. It just goes to show. And I made this mistake too before in the past, Luke, when I was doing in-person PT, where I almost like obsessed over, we're doing a deadlift and technique has to be perfect. But like every individual is different. Everyone has got different mechanics. So I think it's kind of like when it comes to even lifting, just addressing the fine line between, okay, yeah, like it should look something like a deadlift, or it should look something like a squat, but you can't be freaking obsessing over a 45-degree lean at the torso. And then if you tell your client that, oh, you've got super tight hips, you've got super weak core, your words really do have power, and that can actually impact them and change their perception of what they are and aren't capable of doing, outside of what like their actual strength measures might actually show. So I think that's such a great point there as well, Luke. And just talk to us then. A lot of our listeners, Luke, we'll just briefly have a chat about this, are desk workers.
Yeah.
So the traditional 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, 40, 50 hours a week. And I know for myself, even sometimes if I'm working off the laptop too long, a lot of these desk workers, they might have tight back, tight neck, tight kind of, rounded shoulders and so on. So tell us, Luke, just in relation to posture itself, is it possible to actually improve your posture? And let's just start out with that one first, Luke. Is it possible to improve your posture?
You're coming at me with all the hard ones today. Is it possible to improve your posture? I'm not going to say it's impossible, because that wouldn't be 100% accurate, because have people changed their posture? They have. But it is an extremely, extremely difficult thing to do. And it's going to take probably years of your time and effort and persistence to change your posture. So does it need to be changed is a nice question to ask, and probably doesn't, because yeah. So like it is, I know that's a controversial thing and people are probably thinking, what is this lad talking about? But this is a very deeply rooted belief that there is good posture and bad posture. But actually we can't look at posturing good and bad or correct, incorrect, all these type of things, because it just doesn't work like that. We're all human beings. We all have, as you say, natural variabilities to our posture, and that's what makes us normal. So if somebody's slouched over, that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's not going to cause you damage long term. And if somebody is sat up completely erect with a really straight spine, that's not necessarily a good thing, and that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have a better outcome with pain down the line. We actually know from the evidence that the people that are more focused on their posture are more likely to experience pain than the people that are less focused on their posture. So the more hyper focused and hyper aware you are of your posture during the day, the more likely you are to have a sensitive back, and the more likely you are for you to feel pain. So coming back to your example there of an office worker, Does that mean you don't do anything? That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying the aim isn't to change the posture. The aim is to move more, because whether you're sitting slouched for 8 hours a day or whether you're sitting straight for 8 hours a day, you're going to get discomfort somewhere in your body. So actually we need to break the day up and move around and explore different movements, as opposed to maintaining a set position. Because I've said it twice already, but the danger is in the dose with how long you sit for. And trying to change your posture is probably as hard as stopping smoking. Like, it's a really, really difficult thing to do. And it's something that's not worth the time and effort, because you're not going to see a change very, very quick, and you're going to lose motivation to change it. So actually change the goal, get yourself moving more, get yourself in the gym, go for a run. And that is going to be what yields the best health outcomes in the long term, not the change in trying to change your posture.
Yeah, man, that's literally what I do. Like, maybe every 60 minutes or 90 minutes, if I'm working for too long, I'll just like even just go for a short walk, like 30 seconds, 60 seconds. If my shoulders do feel a little tight, I might just get a band and do like, again, going back to that strength training, do like 15, 20 band pull aparts. And I'm feeling now like, movement is medicine, as Kelly Surratt says, and I'm feeling a bit better in myself. Tell me, Luke, though, just before we kind of wrap this up, because we spoke a lot here now about like, foam rolling, static stretching, low back pain, posture. Tell me, Luke, in terms of optimal work environment, standing versus sitting desk.
For the general population?
Just for general pop.
Again, probably comes back to personal preference. So if you have the option of sitting during the day and standing during the day, I would do a mixture of the two. Yes. So the evidence at the moment doesn't really tell us that standing all day is amazing for your health, and sitting all day isn't exactly like the worst thing for your health either. Like, we can't say that both of them are going to lead to bad outcomes. But what you want to do is probably vary it in the same way that you'd vary your positions when you're sitting down, standing for a period of the day, and then when you start to get fatigued in your back, then sitting down, and then when you're sick of sitting down, standing back up. These are really good ways of doing things, provided people can facilitate it in the workplace. But we have to be careful not to pathologize posture, because it's something that has been pathologized a lot, that good and bad posture, and you need to get this fixed or it's going to lead to problems. That's all nonsense, and it's pseudoscience, and it's fueled by gurus that are more concerned with a financial gain than your actual health itself. So standing desks are good. They can be really helpful. I enjoy standing during the day when I'm seeing clients, and then I'll sit down to do my notes. I think variability in that way is really good.
Sure. Interesting. Yeah. Wow. Just so, man, we spoke about so much. So just to kind of summarize everything you've said, Luke, you mentioned foam rolling, if you're to do it, no longer than 30 seconds. Similar enough with static stretching too. Warm up should transition from slow to fast, from maybe on the floor sitting to more active dynamic. The importance of load and strength on top of your newfound flexibility, that it's not enough just to stretch your ankles. Why not, do a goblet squat and see, can you squat a bit deeper? So you're actually adding strength to your newfound flexibility. You spoke about low back pain, and that, sure, of course, there might be a cooling off period if you do have low back pain, where rest might be prescribed. But the danger is in how long, and the goal should be to try to get back moving as soon as possible. The posture cannot be improved. So many great takeaways here, Luke. So I just kind of want to wrap up just a bit more about yourself, Luke. So I mean, I love the way you have the best of both worlds, because you've done the sports science, you're an active lifter, you're someone who practices what you preach. You're putting time under the bar, you're getting your reps in, but of course you've got the qualifications to back it up. So what are your kind of current goals, Luke? What's something you're currently working on yourself, just in relation to your health, your fitness?
So in terms of my health and fitness, so like a lot of as you were asking me at the very start, like what got me into physio was because I got a lot of back pain as a teenager, and I spent a lot of time with gurus that weren't really helping me a lot. So the whole reason I'm into strength training and fitness and health, all that type of thing, is because of my own back pain, is to look after it. And I've had good outcomes by doing all of the stuff that I do, which is keeping myself really active and getting into the gym. At the moment, it's about 4 days a week. So that's my split. I do like an upper lower. And And the plan is to try and increase my deadlift as much as I possibly can and squat up as much as I possibly can by the summertime, while also bringing the weight down a bit as well. So I'm getting coaching from one of the lads at Triage at the moment, and shedding a small bit of body fat before the summer. And then the aim will be to increase my body weight nice and slow for the rest of the year and get my numbers back up to where they were like pre-COVID, because they're gone down a bit from where they were. So that's my sort of strength goals, you could say, and a bit of body composition goals. And the health goals are to, because I'm studying medicine at the moment, the health goals is to not lose my sanity by studying as 24/7, but also to look after my own health in terms of good quality sleep every night, making sure I'm getting in my movement every single day, and just getting a balance between the work and the fun. That's what I'm trying to do as best as I can.
And Luke, what would you say to someone who is either studying a real intensive course like you are in medicine, or who is working maybe 50 hours a week, and they say that, not that they don't have time, but they're not going to prioritize maybe exercising or eating well? What are some of the dangers, do you feel, of just neglecting the health, the fitness during difficult times like that?
Yeah, like I'm a firm believer that health and, I suppose, fitness should complement your life. It shouldn't take away from it. Yeah. So you should be doing it to reap the benefits, so that you can be the best person that you want to be in other areas of your life. So I think, like, for myself, if I'm studying 24/7, I just feel crap, just feel horrendous. And actually, I don't learn as much as I can, and I don't probably not the best person to be around once you've been studying for 24/7. You get grumpy, you don't feel very good about yourself, and you're not taking in the information that you should be. So if you are somebody that doesn't find the time for fitness related stuff, it would be good to try and figure out, well, are you performing to the best of your ability in your studies? And if you are, then you're probably not going to have much motivation to change anything. But if there's things that aren't going very well, if you're getting brain fog towards the end of the day, if you're just getting really irritable and tired, then actually doing some exercise can give you more energy. It has been shown to do that. It can help your concentration levels. It can improve your sleep. It can improve your overall mood. And all of these things are going to set you up to be better at your job or to be better in your studies. So they should always complement each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Such a great point. Such a great point. Luke, let's wrap this up. So what are 1 to 3 takeaways, Luke, that you'd like our guests to implement, or our listeners to implement?
Something that I didn't mention that I suppose would be a main takeaway would be that pain doesn't always mean there's a problem. Pain doesn't mean damage. We shouldn't be quick to pathologize posture, and we probably shouldn't be overly concerned with doing loads of stretching, because the benefits just aren't there. It's not going to reduce your risk of injury. It's not going to change your posture. It may reduce your strength and power. So if we're going to do it, we need to do it wisely. And that means probably doing less of it and more of the stuff that's going to improve your health long-term. So flexibility isn't a measure of your health.
Brilliant. Wow. Luke, I just want to acknowledge it. This has been absolutely phenomenal now. And again, I love the way you have, of course, you have all the education, you've all the experience, but you've got the time under the bar, you've got the reps, you're someone who practices what you preach as well. So you've got the best of both worlds. Man, thank you so much for hopping on. Just 2 final questions, Luke. I asked them to all my guests before we go. So, Luke, I'm big into like routines and morning routines. And what do like the first 30 to 60 minutes of your day look like, Luke?
First 30 to 60 minutes. So I will get up at 5:30, and I'll get up at 5:30. I'll drag myself into the kitchen and I'll have a protein shake, and I'll have a coffee, and I'll study up until 6:15, and then I go to the gym from 6:30 to 7:30. That is my routine since September of last year, since I came back over here to Ireland to study medicine. That's my routine. Yeah.
Unbelievable. I love it. Yeah. Start the day off at movement. Movement is medicine, people. Movement is medicine. And finally, Luke, this is the Lifestyle Lifter show. So tell me, Luke, for you, what's your definition of living a successful lifestyle? What's that look like for you?
That's a good question. Living a successful lifestyle. I think a good way of doing this, of thinking about this, is you being on your deathbed, like literally you're 90 years of age and you're looking back on your life. And when you actually consider that and you think deeply about that, then it puts everything else into perspective. So what truly matters to you in your life? Is it money? Is it family? Is it work? Do you know what meaning and value do you get from your life? And think about all those things that are valuable to you, and then think of yourself as a 90-year-old and you're on your deathbed. Did you satisfy all those things in your life that were valuable to you, or did you just work 24/7 and neglect the people that are most important to you in your life, or neglect your health? You know, all of these things I think are good to think about. So for me, what's most success, what I would classify my success as is making sure that I maintain the health of my relationships with the people around me, with family and friends, making sure that I basically can be successful in my own professional life, and making sure that though the professional life doesn't come before the personal life. That will always be what matters most to me, I think. So I don't find much I don't find much attraction in people that are just working 24/7 and neglecting their friends or their family in their lives, because it might become a regret for them when they get to their deathbed. So I think thinking about what's most important to you, and then living your life based on those values, will probably lead to the most success in the long term.
What a way to wrap things up. Luke, phenomenal. Luke, tell us, where can people learn more about you?
I suppose I do a lot of tweeting, so I'm Irish _ physio on Twitter. But I'll probably be spending more time on Instagram over the coming few months. So that'll be Luke _ Irish _ physio. That's where you'll find me. And Triage Method as well, of course, on Instagram. That's where we post up most of our like educational stuff and tips and tricks and all that. So if anyone found stuff that I was saying interesting or controversial, or didn't like it or did like it, or had some personal experience, I'd actually love for people to reach out, DM me. I'm always happy to chat.
Brilliant. Yeah. And also don't forget to DM him or tag him on his IG stories. When you look up Christmas in Castletown on YouTube back from 2010, I'll make sure, Luke, to post all those links in the show notes. But Luke, thank you so much again. For everyone listening there, thank you to all our listeners. Please do, if you have listened to this, if you found it beneficial, if you found it valuable, if you got any kind of value at all from it, please tag me, please tag Luke in your IG stories, and we will share it. We always love getting feedback. Luke, thanks so much again. This has been awesome.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Brilliant.